Hey guys! Some time ago, me and Descalado recorded a video on his UIA library, essentially a library that lets you interact with the elements of applications instead of just pointing your mouse to them and clicking them. So I've been using it for a while now, and it's most useful for me on Spotify, which is what I'm going to be showing you today. So essentially how I figured it out, how I use it, what it can do, so on. So there are a couple of actions that I do really often on Spotify. The most basic ones are toggling shuffle, or specifically putting it in the on state or off state. So with UIA, something that you can do is just make sure that the shuffle button is on, for example. So how do we do that? First of all, we actually run the UIA.ahk, so we get UIA viewer. Let's start capturing and point our mouse to this button, disable shuffle. And after it constructs, look at patterns. Here you see toggle, which means that we can set the toggle state of this button, essentially. So we can assign it as true to mean definitely make this on, or assign it as false to definitely mean that it's off. So to show that in code, well, here it is. I can set the shuffle state to true or to false, but obviously this Spotify UIA shuffle state is not built in. This is an element that I have, and how do we get to it? Well, first of all, for my UIA things, I have a bunch of properties that have this like document structure, and they are indented the more deep they are. So if this element is indented, it means that it depends on the element that is indented less. Okay? And here I have the UIA class, which contains all of them. So first of all, you would need to get the actual document. Why document? Because Spotify is actually a browser, and we need to essentially get the main page, the everything, accepting these buttons and alt space. Oh, wait, what? Well, it used to work before, but essentially when you press alt space, if it's not remapped for you, you get some things and some other stuff. So we get the document to actually get the Spotify window. And from then on, we use find element and wait element, like how we showed in that previous video. So we get multiple elements and get to the actual element that we want. And the reason why I have this sort of structure, instead of just getting to the actual element to begin with, is because all of these elements are reusable, and one element can be reused in different other elements. So let's redo getting to this button and how I do it. So first of all, we get to UIA viewer, and we already got this element, right? So now your action should be seeing what parent does this have. So the parent in this case is content info, which is this whole box. And aside from disable shuffle, it also has previous, play, next, and other stuff. So essentially, this is an element that we might want for the future when we make other buttons as well. Which is why I would actually save this element, and I do. So content info, I think, yeah. And indeed, so here's the actual shuffle element, which has a shuffle state, and its parent is the content info. Okay, let's go back to see. Not sure if you can see it. OBS gets opened first, unfortunately. So the parent of content info, we go up and see that it's actually the document. So after we get the document, we can just straight up get content info, then get shuffle element and shuffle state. Okay, but how do we actually get those elements? Well, first of all, by using find element and wait element. So the document is a thing that always exists. You won't ever need to wait for it, and if you do, it's probably an error. So yeah, hold up. So we use element from handle and Spotify the win title of, in this case, Spotify, but in your case it can be literally any window. However, if you're working with a browser or something that depends on Chromium, you should be using element from Chromium. It's better. It's faster as well. So we use find element, and let's actually look at this very precisely so you see the working process of getting stuff. So on this current level, we have like what? 5 elements. And how do we get the document? Is the only thing here that is called document, so we can just specify the type and we will be sure that we get what we want. And the more elements you go through until you find the correct one, the longer it takes to get that element. So you should pretty much always specify scope 2 to mean only the direct children. In this case, we're searching from pane Spotify free, and we have 5 direct children. So by specifying scope 2, we mean only search through these 5 and find something that has the type of document. Great, now we got that element. The next one that we should be taking is content info. So now we're searching from document, and we once again have 5 direct children. Okay, what do we need here? Once again, it's the only one that has content info as localized type, and by the way, you can just right click on this. So when you come in here, you can just paste it from your clipboard and it's immediately there. Like, you don't even have to look at it and retype. The Scalata really made it so much easier for us. So we get the content info by once again specifying scope 2. And I also specify group. We don't really need to, but sometimes I like to be over specific, which can sometimes be the death of you. It's a rare situation where you shouldn't be over specific, surprisingly. It's a hard balance that I got with experience, and I still don't have it that well, but essentially experiment and you'll see what works and what doesn't. Okay, so we got the content info, and now what we want is disable shuffle. So there are a couple of buttons here, and the thing is, once wait or find element finds something that matches, it instantly returns it. So to get our shuffle element, we could just specify the type of button, because here it is, the first button that we have, and since it matches, it immediately returns it. But it's kinda stupid to rely on the ordering of those, so you should also specify the name by right-clicking once again, and you can just paste that in. However, the name of the button changes. So if your shuffle is on, it will be called disable shuffle, but if it's off, it will be called enable shuffle, meaning that the name changes. But don't worry, you can specify match mode substring to mean that this name should be at least a part of the full name, because by default, this would mean that this button is called shuffle and there's nothing else in the name. But by using match mode substring, you can just specify a part of the name. And there is also a match mode called regex where you could use regex, but keep in mind it is slower than substring. Okay, and once again, we specified the scope of 2. So we got to the shuffle element. And now we can use its property toggle state to see its state. If it's true, then it's on. If it's false, then it's off. So I create a property to set that state. It's kind of unnecessary of an abstraction, but I just made it. So let's go to where I use it. Now I just have functions yes shuffle and no shuffle to set them as specifically things that I want. And also toggle shuffle that just uses the function toggle, which you don't really have to use. You could also use click, not because it will actually click with the mouse, it will transform into the toggle function, which is also very cool, but I'm explicit here, maybe to my demise. Same thing that I just explained applies to like and dislike, so this thing. However, for it we need to go one level deep. But to not re-explain what I have already explained, I will go over things that might be important to know. Order 2. What is this? So imagine that we're searching in this content info, and in this case, we want this element, so the text. And as you can see, it's more to the bottom of this list rather than the top. By default, find element and wait element starts searching from the top. But by specifying order 2, it starts searching from the bottom. So if your element is more to the bottom than the top, you should specify order 2 to get more speed, because it will start closer to the actual element. Okay. Interesting. I don't quite remember what this does. Hold up. Here's an example of me actually using match mode regex. So this regex means play hashtag and then a number or any amount of numbers. I use it to, well, actually, let me show it off. So I have 20 playlists because I have 5,000 something liked, and always shuffling my liked ends up repeating the same songs because of how math works. So by dividing them into 20, I get to hear more songs rather than repetitions of the ones that I already listened to. So what I want to do is a hotkey that opens my oldest playlist. First, it should click your library, wait for this window to appear, and then search for the playlist. So it goes from the bottom by using order 2, and it needs to find an element which is a number. Like, I don't want this playlist to play, for example, or this or anything else. I want a numbered playlist. So let me actually show off this working. I press F9. That is hilarious. It might be because I'm also running UIA viewer, but hold on. Let's try this again after reloading. Well, isn't that strange? It's always when you record videos that stuff stops working. But how does this work? First of all, once again, we need to click on your library, and let's actually go to the function that is play oldest playlist. First of all, I use yes shuffle to make sure that the shuffle is on, because I don't want to listen to a playlist in order. Then I found your library button, meaning this thing, and I click on it. So it depends on main navigation, which I found here, and that just depends on the document thing. Okay, and then oldest playlist button. which depends on your library element, meaning this entire window. And what is interesting is that it will be the same regardless on where you are. So this will be this element of your library element, and other stuff as well. Yeah, I think that's the case. So in it, I try to find this green button to immediately start playing that playlist. Okay, is there anything other interesting that I use with UIA? I actually do. When I press F6, I copy the artist's name and the name of the track. Well, these are actually what we can get as well. So we can get the value of the names of all the artists and the track name as well. So here it is, copy artist. Depends on the element, first artist name. So let's go to Spotify and run UIA again, so we can capture this element and look at its pattern. Here we have value, which is really good because we can essentially get the value of this thing, or change it. You can actually change it, but it doesn't do shit, at least on Spotify. But we can get the name because it's a property of the element, and that's exactly what we do. So first artist, we found it in the inner content info, which is essentially this part. So let's re-find it again and see how that works. Okay, so here's the content info that we already had, but here's the inner content info, or at least I call it that. So out of these, we just needed to find either just the first element or the first content info, because it's the only content info in the content info. Damn. Then we have the name of the track, and after that we get the name of all the artists. So this is the first artist's name, and if it was a feature, there will be multiple. So to get that, since we don't have any other way to differentiate between them, they're both links and their names always change, that's like the entire point of them, we can use index. Index can be used to get a specific numbered element from a list. So essentially, get the second link is what I'm asking here. And to get the second artist, I would use index 3 to mean get the third element, and so on and so on. This is the worst thing you can do, pretty much, in terms of how you get to an element. But if it's consistent, it's okay to use. Just try your best to first do it differently if you can. So then I end up getting the name property of this element, and that's how I can go to Spotify and copy them both. First by copying the name of the artist, and then copying the name of the track, combining them, and then it's in my clipboard. So copy artist track, as you can see. Yeah, so there are a lot of stuff here that I use, but I wanted to share you the main ideas out of how to get to them, how to get to elements, and what you can do with that. My Spotify class has a bunch of stuff built in already, which should probably work for you as well. but you can use this information to use UIA in other places as well. By the way, the browser, probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think about UIA automation. And let me give you a spoiler. It's fun, it's interesting, but it's not stable. So definitely try it out. I think it's the best practice you're gonna get because it's pretty annoying and difficult. I'm overselling that, but it can take some time for sure. But through going through that, you get pretty damn good at UIA and can use it easier in other applications, which are easier to make stable things for. So, if you enjoyed this video, press a like, type some comment, maybe have a question or a suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!